Hello, N4H&H here with the Yaesu FTdx10, and I just want to show you a little something I just discovered. You know, I've been really scrutinizing this radio, comparing it to my FTdx5000, in various different ways, because the 5000 got rated by Sherwood Engineering back when it was first released, and they never did recheck it. So this is a little bit of a benchmark for me, because the FTdx10 is third in the world now for reciprocal mixing dynamic range selectivity. And so, I just wonder how good is the 5000 against it, because the 5000 didn't get retested after all the improvements. And my FTdx5000 is an MP model from about 18 months ago. So I was just messing around with the filters here. I just want you to hear. So there's QR Mary. If I go to the full width, you'll hear it shift. All right, so I'm shifting by -60. Well, let me do this in the order you usually do it in. I'm going to tighten the filter down to 2100. I ran a 2100 hertz sideband filter in my Yaesu FT920 for years. It gave that radio a whole new lease on life, and so my ears are kind of adjusted to 2100 anyway. But I'm still hearing some of that bleed over. So I'm going to go down to -60 on the shift. This is just what I happened to do a little bit earlier before I started rolling the camera here. Now I'm going to go down to the 5000. Well, first of all, get a frame of reference. At -60 on the shift and the width at 2100, 2.1K, you hear a little bit of that metallic sound, okay? So some of that is still coming through. It's coming from right here. I'll show you. It is 2 kilohertz away. Now, since we're on the lower sideband, they will produce the higher pitched metallic sound when they're below you. It reverses on upper sideband, but okay, that's just beside the point, though. Listen to the amount of bleed over. All right, now I'm going to switch to the 5000. It's also at 2100 hertz. And just bear with me a second. I have to adjust my f-stop so you can see the 5000 a little better. There we go. Now, I'm going to go down to the DSP here. You'll see right here is width. It's on 2100, 2.1 kilohertz. So get a frame of reference there. Now I'm going to, while I'm still looking at the 5000, I'm going to switch it back up to the 10. And back to the 5000. Okay, to my ear, and it just may be me, but to my ear, it sounds like the 10 is knocking a little bit more of that out with the 1.9, with the 2.1K. Now, I gave myself away, right? I'm about to go to 1.95. So let me go to, there's my friend Richard N1RBD coming on. So I'm going to go to, temporarily here, I'm going to go down to 1950. You still hear a little bit of it, right? Now let me go down to the 5000 and put it on 1.95. Now listen to the amount that's coming through now on the 5000. Maybe they're neck and neck, but it almost seems to me like the 1.95 or the 1950 width setting on the 5000 is tighter than the 1950 on the FTdx10, but on the FTdx10, the 2100 is tighter. We're still on the 5000. Is tighter than the 5000's 2.1. Tuner. So, what do I want to do next if the tuner will quit? Man. Really? What I want to do next is I'm going to use the shift, and I'm going to go, in increments to see which one of those has the tightest 1.95 filter. We're nitpicking here, right? These two radios are beasts. It's hard to get any better than this, really. Somebody, if you got a radio you think's better than this, I'll take it. Just send it to me, okay? All right, here we go. I'm going to go back to well, I'll do it on the 5000 right now. Boy, you can hear it come back when I turn off that digital width, right? So I'm at 1.95. And it takes negative 100 on the shift to make it completely go away. Now, let's switch back up to the FTdx10. I'll fix my shutter speed here. And wait till the interference comes back. Oh, I was already at 1950 on it. Okay, shifts at 60, negative 60. Width at 1950, 1.95 kilohertz. Clearly it's in there at 2100. Now it's still sneaking a little bit in there at 1950, so I'm going to go negative 80. Negative 100. So now they're both exactly the same. 1.95 kilohertz. Filter width, shift at negative 100. Because remember, if it's a high-pitched metallic sound, you shift counterclockwise. Now, I think they're neck and neck. There for a bit, it seemed like that the FTdx10 was a little bit tighter on the 2100 hertz setting than the 5000, but then at 1.95, it seemed like the 5000 was a little tighter than the 10. Now they're still sneaking through here on the at 1950. Let me go back to the 5000. Different station, I guess, a little stronger that time. 5000. Let me fix that shutter speed and I'll pan down to it. Let's try 1.8 and negative 100 shift. Okay, I'll go back up to the 10 and do that. Bear with me a second. There we go. All right, so 1800 with a negative 100 shift. Still hearing a little bit of it in there, right? Aren't you? Is this incredible or what? That we got radios this good these days we can buy? Somebody's carrying on a QSO 2 kilohertz away, and we can knock them out. When it comes back again, I'm going to go back to the 5000. And in case you haven't noticed, I am running 6 dB of attenuation and IPO is enabled, so I'm not using an RF amplifier. Some radios, other brands, would call that a preamp or not. It's just not necessary. Look at this. I mean, on these low bands like this, if I don't run attenuation and IPO, look at all that hash. You can see it on the scope. You just don't need that kind of sensitivity on these lower bands like this. So work that noise from the front end. Now, of course, I don't have RF gain rolled back. Let's do that. Here we go. Well, see, I want to hear that bleed over, so hang on. You know, and by the way, it's exercises like this that are the sort of things, you know, they test when they're evaluating these radios for their RMDR abilities and, you know, the selectivity. And, man, clearly this 10 is up to the task. You know, some filters will have blow-by, you know, just they can only do so much. And yes, we have some lightning storms in the area, and it is very dark out there. And you're probably hearing those crashes. Well, what happened to my QRM? Back on the 5000 temporarily. Well, maybe the QR Mary has stopped. Or, well, let me see if I've got it knocked out. I'll loosen the filter from 1800 back to 1950. I'm going to warm up this audio a little bit. Go back into the radio setting, mode SSB, AF bass gain. I've got it knocked down a little bit because of this external speaker having so much bottom end in it, but I probably went too far with it. I'm going to try just the 0, which is yellow, so therefore that's a default. When you don't have that external speaker, if you watch the previous videos, you got to run the AF gain for the bass up, 6, 7, maybe even 8 to warm it up from, when you're listening to the speaker inside the radio. It's just not as big. You got a larger resonance cavity with the external speaker, and so it tends to, the SP30 here, it tends to produce more low end, so you can cut back the EQ in the radio. How cool is that to have a radio that's got a EQ for the receive audio, 3-band EQ? And by the way, on the subject of the external speaker, I want to mention something to you. I had a viewer ask this question: could they buy a second SP30 and put it on the other side of the radio? Well, yes and no. Here's the problem, and I checked this out with Yaesu. The output of this radio for audio, the audio output jack on the back, is rated for 4 to 16 ohms. And so if those of you who may be new to ham radio, this might not make a lot of sense. So let me say it this way. The impedance is what we call that, 4 to 16 ohms. Well, that means that we cannot give the radio less than 4 ohms impedance on a speaker because it can overheat the audio amplifier. Well, that speaker, the SP30, is already a 4 ohm speaker. Now, the reasoning for that was the radio is a single receiver model. It does not have simultaneous dual receive like the big brother FTdx10 does. Other than that, they're the same radio. This one just doesn't have, dual receive, simultaneous dual receive, and it doesn't have the VC tune variable preselector. Other than that, they're really the same radio. But here's the thing. When you have simultaneous dual receive, you can use 2 speakers, and when you're listening VFO-A, sound comes out the left speaker, VFO-B, sound comes out the right speaker. That's the way it is on the FTdx5000 with that speaker setup that I've got that has the scope in the middle. This right here, well, there's speakers on each side. So this radio is not simultaneous dual receive, so there's not really anything to be gained by having a second speaker other than, I guess, the looks. So the problem would be the speaker does not have an additional jack on the back anyway, so that you could daisy chain another speaker to it. But even if it did, and you did, you would be presenting the audio amplifier circuit with 2 ohms. 2 4-ohm loads in parallel is 2 ohms. So that would probably eventually would damage that audio output circuit. So now, Yaesu, the guy at Yaesu said, well, take the speaker out of the SP30 and go get your own speaker and get an 8 ohm. And put in there and put an 8 ohm in 2 SP30s, and then use a splitter and run them in parallel. And then you're presenting the radio with 4 ohms again. So, good suggestion from one of the Yaesu techs. But now you might be wondering, well, why didn't they think about that? Why didn't they go ahead and make that speaker 8 ohms anyway? And that is because you're going to get more volume out of the speaker with the lower impedance. So you won't have to run this knob as high to get more volume. But I got to be honest with you, if that speaker were 8 ohms, I might have to go from, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock or maybe 11:30 on the knob here to produce the same volume. Might have to go up a couple of hours, if you will, on the knob here to produce the same volume that I could get at 4 ohms. So they were looking for giving us the most volume output from that external speaker versus, thinking about, you think about it from Yaesu's perspective, they could sell twice as many speakers if they'd have made that 8 ohms. But they just weren't thinking that we would even be interested in that. And of course, they wanted to give us the most volume out of the speaker with the least volume from the knob. So it's a 4 ohm speaker. Those of you who might want to do a double speaker setup, buy a second SP30, just open the box, replace the speaker that's in there with an 8 ohm speaker in each box, and then use a splitter on the output jack in the back, and there you go. You can run 2 speakers with this radio. But since it doesn't have simultaneous dual receive, you're still just going to have essentially 2 monaural speakers are going to each produce the same sound. So anyway, just wanted to answer that since one of my viewers had asked that question. But okay, it looks like the QR Mary has, it's still in there a little bit. Okay, I just had it effectively knocked out at 1800 with a 100 shift, negative 100 shift. And let me check the 5000 one more time. (1.8) and negative 100. So if I go to 2.1, there it is. A 1.95 is knocking it out. And one more time, we will go back up to the FTdx10. We get that shutter speed set. And we're at 1950. Negative 100. There's a little bit of the bleed over there. Hear it? It's just ever so slight now. Down to the 5000. The 5000 is on the 1.95 or 1950 hertz. Oh man, they're neck and neck. But at 1950, you're hearing what I heard earlier. It seems like at 1950, the 5000 wins. So that's the 5000 on 1.95K. And I can barely tell. I mean, there's a hint of the bleed over. And on the 10, I can hear a little more of it. But I think the 10's got the better filter at 2100. 2100, and I'll go to the 5000. Oh. Well, that's new. That's 2100 or 2.1K with the 5000. Live auto notch. Okay, I'm gonna give you a bonus on this video while I'm at it. Auto notch. Since that came up, you know how I am. I try to shoot a video when there's an opportunity to teach something, a teachable moment. So, auto notch. If you've got somebody tuning and you're trying to hear a station that's weaker than the tuner, engage your auto notch or manual notch if you need. It doesn't matter. Some radios don't have auto notch, some have manual notch. Engage it and zero beat them. In other words, make the tone go away. And then the person who was weaker, you'll actually be able to hear. I've done that trick before working Rare DX. So let me go over that one more time in case that didn't make sense. You're trying to work, let's say, a Rare DX station, and you know how it is. Somebody gets in there and they decide they want to work the Rare DX, so they decide to tune up. So that's generally why I keep auto notch turned on the 5000. And so, and by the way, the 10 has auto notch as well. I've shown that in a previous video. While I'm pointing at the 10, I'll show you where it is. DNF, and I've got it turned on right there. So I'm running with it on anyway. All right, so you're trying to work this weaker station, and then somebody comes in, and let's say the weaker station's actually right down above just barely above the noise level, or barely above an imaginary, as my friend Ariel says, or my friend Joel calls them ghost stations. So this tuner upper comes in there and starts tuning. Let your notch filter knock the tone out, and you'll find that their signal has masked the background noise, and then you can perhaps hear the DX station that you were trying to work. Just try that next time you have that situation encounter. And what you're going to do is you're going to start calling your buddy up and say, hey, can you tune up on the band? I'm trying to hear this guy on the Pitcairn Islands, So you'll be thanking tuner uppers in a scenario like that. So just thought I'd pass that along since that came to mind. All right. Well, hey, I hope you enjoyed the video, and, just sit here. I mean, look, isn't it great that we're nitpicking these radios? This is amazing. Those of you who are getting into the hobby these days, you're in at the right time. The radio technology is just incredible. What's available to us, not just from Yaesu, other brands as well. Hey, thank you, Patreons, for helping me keep the channel going. I do really appreciate you. And if anyone out there would like to become a Patreon and help me continue this mission, please do go to www.patreon.com/N4HNH. And hey, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell. All of those things will help continue to grow the channel and help me to continue to put out this kind of content, okay? Hey, thanks a lot for watching. And 73 from N4HNH.